The Chosen Season 4 is rapidly approaching, and by rapidly, we're talking like super duper fast. Filming starts in just a few weeks for The Chosen Season 4 on March 27th. It's crazy that I even get to say The Chosen Season 4 now. It's all moving so quickly. But what exactly are they going to be filming in Season 4? What is going to entail for this season? I mean, spoiler alert, but you probably should have already read the book that it's based on, you know? But today we're going to be talking about things that I expect will happen in The Chosen Season 4, and something that specifically relates to one episode, and that is episode 6, which we know the title of, and certain events that will entail, and even a particular scene from this episode. So before we begin, let's go ahead and roll that intro. If you want to stay updated on all of the upcoming news for The Chosen Season 4 and beyond, then be sure to click that subscribe button and turn on all notifications for Against the Current, The Chosen YouTube channel, because you're not going to want to miss anything that I post when I post it, as soon as I post it. And with that said, let's get started with the video, because there are two very interesting screenshots that I want to look at today. Two screenshots from the Season 4 scripts themselves that the director himself, Dallas Jenkins, posted to social media, and that I was able to screenshot and save. Now, here's how the story goes. On November 20th, Dallas shared this screenshot, and I immediately thought, that's going to be important. So I screenshot it, saved it, and I still have it to this day, and I've just been remembering it and thinking about it. I'm going to want to come back to that. And after spending an unhealthy amount of time looking at this screenshot, we can kind of deduce a few important things from this screenshot. First important thing to note, and this is something that has to do with, the overarching finale of Season 4, which, in my opinion, what I think we're going to get in the finale is in Episode 7, maybe Jesus is going to raise Lazarus from the dead, and then Episode 8 of Season 4, he's going to ride in on the donkey, the triumphal entry into Jerusalem for the Passover, which will then be Holy Week, which is what we see in Season 5. This has been confirmed by the mouth of the director himself, Dallas Jenkins, on an interview with yours truly, and you can check that out right up there. So if Season 5 is Holy Week, Season 6 is Jesus' crucifixion, and Season 7 is what happens afterwards, that makes it pretty easy to determine what's going to happen in Season 4. What other Bible stories do we still need to see before we get into Holy Week and the Crucifixion Week, which is going to be a very emotional time and hard season to get through for everybody, but it's a necessary one because obviously we believe it happens in the story, and that's what's written in the Bible. So that leaves some stuff for Season 4. That leaves the death and resurrection of Lazarus. That leaves Simon having his name changed from Simon to Peter, which happens in Caesarea Philippi. I got a little off topic there. What interesting thing can we deduce from this screenshot? Well, if you look right there, Jesus says, "This illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." When does Jesus say this in the Bible? Well, specifically, it is in John chapter 11, verse 4. Why does he say this? Well, he says it because he learns about Lazarus. And if you look right below that, it says Season 4, Episode 7, which means that this happens in Episode 6. Maybe this is at the end of the episode, like the last thing Jesus says, and that'll kind of be the cliffhanger of that episode as we lead into Episode 7 and 8, which I do believe Episode 8 will have the triumphal entry. You can feel free to disagree with me down below in the comments, but I personally believe that that is what the season is going to end off on, because it is a triumphal entry. It is a triumphal, but yet kind of solemn, event, because Jesus knows that this is the beginning of the end for his life and for his ministry. I personally think that's going to be the ending of Season 4. But what else can we see in this? And what else do we know we're going to see in this season or not see in this season? Dallas himself has said, and again, in an interview with your favorite chosen podcaster, Dallas explained in the interview that I did that Gaius' story is going to be concluded this season. And what does Gaius' story entail? Well, Dallas himself has said that Gaius is going to be the centurion whose servant is healed by Jesus. Now, Gaius' servant becomes severely ill. He doesn't die, but he's very sick and about to. And he tells Jesus, and Jesus tells him, "Go, your son will be healed. He will not die." And Gaius comes home to find his servant is healed. Now, Dallas has said, his own words are, Gaius' story will be concluded this season. And that is pretty, obviously what he's referring to is that little plot line that's been set up from basically the beginning of the show. And it'll be a very nice payoff, and I'm excited to see that story be concluded. But there's also a few other little Bible stories that, like Zacchaeus. I would personally like to see that this season, and there's no other place to put it since they haven't done it yet, and they're definitely not going to have that be in seasons 5 and onwards. So, well, I mean, there's quite a lot to do in this season. We have Lazarus' death and resurrection. We have Gaius's servant being healed. We have continuations of Shmuel's plot line and Atticus's plot line, and Yusuf and all these other things happening. But there's probably going to be a bit of time in this season, particularly for these episodes, to have all of these, like, these kind of one-off stories, maybe like the adulterous woman, the part in the Bible where the Pharisees bring this adulterous woman to Jesus and say, "What should we do with her?" And Jesus says, "Those of you who have not sinned, cast the first stone," and none of them cast a stone. And there's a particular part in that story that I would be very interested to see the Chosen tackle, is because what I remember the Bible miniseries doing with that scene and being very feeble about their presentation of it is it repeatedly says in the book of John for that story that Jesus draws in the sand with his finger. It doesn't say what he draws or doesn't say why he draws, and he never refers to it. It just keeps saying he draws in the sand. It says that over and over again. It's almost like obnoxious. It's like Jesus draws in the sand. We get it. But it doesn't say what he draws. And in the Bible TV series, they showed him drawing. They didn't show what he drew or anything like that. It would be interesting to see the Chosen tackle this scene and put their little spin and their imagination on what they think Jesus could have been drawing in the sand. So I would love to see stories like that. Obviously, again, Simon Peter's name being changed from Simon to Peter. That's definitely going to happen this season because it happens, a little bit before the crucifixion. It's not like Jesus is going to be in the courtyard and Peter denies him 3 times and Jesus looks at him and goes, "You're Peter now." It's not going to happen. So it's going to have to happen in this season. And also there's an event that we know for sure is not going to happen, and I can attest to, I trust that this is not going to happen, and that is the Transfiguration. I do think we'll probably see the events leading up to that and the events after that, but we're not going to see that particular scene because that's a tricky thing to portray on screen. Jesus is shown with the glory, his face is shining with the glory of God, and there's Elijah and with him, and there's it's a very, as Zealous says, return of the Jedi moment. And for him to portray the glory of God, in its fullness on screen, that's obviously a tricky thing to do, and I can see why he wouldn't want to tackle that. So in my mind, it does make sense that he wouldn't want to do the Transfiguration. And as we've said before, the walking on water was not something that he intended to do, but that's a little different because he genuinely wasn't intending to do it. But then as it became time for season 3, he changed his mind, obviously, and was like, well, I think we can definitely do this. And he didn't lie. He wasn't saying no right up until it happened. Recently, before the walking on water was shown on screen, he wasn't saying no. He was just avoiding the question. So at this point in time, if Dallas hasn't changed his mind on doing the Transfiguration, then he never will. And if he already has, then he's not going to explicitly lie to us because, he doesn't want to lie to the audience. But I think at this point it's safe to say that the Transfiguration is not going to happen, and I do trust Dallas on that. Now, the reason Dallas came onto my podcast is because I did not trust him on that and did not take him on his word for the walking on water and kind of looked through the details and discovered what he was actually planning on doing. But if we do see something in the season 3 filming that maybe does imply that they're doing the Transfiguration, I will definitely point that out for you guys. But I just don't think that that's going to happen. So I think definitely we can rule out the Transfiguration being an event that's going to happen this season. But other events like, again, Zacchaeus or the adulterous woman, or the story of the widow who puts her 2 cents in and she gives all she has and Jesus talks to her. Just those one-off Bible stories that don't really seem to be connected a whole lot to the whole rest of the narrative. And they're just showing Jesus he just goes on these, Jesus and his disciples are just evangelizing and they're walking around and these people come to him. Obviously, we're definitely going to see the blind man being healed. There's a man born blind that Jesus heals. That's an event that kind of ties into the Pharisees getting mad at Jesus and plotting, his death. So that's definitely going to be this season. There's so many exciting things that are going to be in this season. I'm very excited to see all of these stories portrayed. This could definitely be the best season of The Chosen. Dallas has shared reactions from the actors as they read the scripts and they texted Dallas. A lot of them are saying this is going to be the best season yet. Even Dallas's wife says this is going to be the best season. It's always fun to see how the writers improve and how they're writing things and trying to, adjust and improve and expand. And since, again, they've written backwards. They know how the show is going to end. Since we have the story, in its fullest in the Bible, we already know what's going to happen. There's no spoilers here. I'm excited to see how these plot lines that maybe right now some people are a little sure about, like maybe Zebedee's oil business plot line. I'd heard a lot of people were upset about that, but Dallas himself has said they wouldn't be spending this much time on it if they didn't have a long-term plan. Dallas and the writers are not stupid. Dallas, Ryan, and Tyler are some of the most brilliant writers I've ever seen, some of the most brilliant men I've ever seen right now, just like currently existing. They wouldn't be writing something with such a strong intent and purpose in certain parts of these plot lines if they didn't have a very big payoff in mind for them later in the show. The show just hasn't come out yet. So what's exciting about this season is that we're going to get to see the continuations of these plot lines and maybe start to get a little bit more of the bigger picture for certain subplots and other plot lines with Thomas and Rayma, what the setup is and what the payoff is going to ultimately be in later seasons as the show finishes. Now, we are not done yet because we still have more to examine in this screenshot. I kind of went off a little bit, but what else do we have in this screenshot here? Don't leave yet. What do we see here? We see a conversation with Jesus and Judas, where Judas is talking about he wants to see Jesus' kingdom come, and he wants to remove any obstacles that get in Jesus' way, either that's monetarily or, and Jesus asks if Joanna's donation has run out. And Jesus looks back at the sheep. Try to picture this scene in your mind. In this scene, Jesus and Judas are standing by, it looks like it seems like a flock of sheep, and they're just kind of watching them and talking. And this might be, since in John 11 is when Jesus learns of Lazarus, the chapter before that is Jesus talks about the parable of the lost sheep. So maybe while Jesus is standing here talking to Judas and they're looking at these sheep, Jesus gives the parable of the lost sheep. That might somehow tie into this, because we know Jesus preaches it to a bunch of people after he heals the blind man, but that might tie into this scene overall. And if we look at this other screenshot from the day before, November 19th, we can see that the title for Season 4, Episode 6 is called Dedication. So lots of interesting things are going to be happening in this episode. We have a conversation between Jesus and Judas. We have Jesus learning of Lazarus' illness here in Season 4, Episode 6. So Season 4, Episode 6, that's what we know about this episode in particular and how that's going to relate to the rest of the season. We can kind of get a roadmap for how the latter half of Season 4 is going to be. Episode 6, Jesus learns of Lazarus' illness. Episode 7, maybe he's traveling, because it says, it's kind of funny the way it words in the Bible. It's almost like a comedic way of saying it. It says, so when he learned that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was staying. It's like, so he learned it, and then he was like, I'm going to stay here for 2 days. It was kind of funny the way it words in the Bible. So maybe Jesus learns of Lazarus' illness in episode 6. And episode 7 is about him staying the 2 days longer in where he was. And then episode 8, maybe he travels to get Lazarus. So maybe we don't get the triumphal entry this season. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't. But it would be a cool way to end the season because of the build-up with the bridal from Season 3, Episode 3. And how that kind of ties into the larger picture of The Chosen as a whole. Overall, I am super excited for The Chosen Season 4. I think it definitely has the potential to be the best season of The Chosen. And as they're, writing and their budget's getting bigger and production's getting better and there's more and more fans and they're, kind of honing in their crafts, obviously they're going to be better as they go along, in fixing, improving things and kind of fixing their mistakes and learning and getting better and evolving in the writing process of the show. So obviously as this show goes on, it definitely always has the potential to get better and better. But this season definitely is going to be one of the best seasons, if not the best season that we've seen so far. And it also marks, once we get to Season 3, Episode 4, that we're going to get to the halfway point in the show. But either way, I'm excited for The Chosen Season 4. I know you guys are. I hope you guys are. And if you are, let me know down below in the comment section. What do you think of all my predictions for this season? It's very exciting to see where The Chosen is going to go next. And again, I always say this, but these are very exciting times for The Chosen community. And I just love connecting with you guys and hearing you guys' theories. So be sure to let me know all of those down below in the comment section. And I will see you guys in my next video where we'll be talking about The Chosen Season 4 filming Week 1. I absolutely can't wait.
I was one way when you found me. I was not the one you see.